What's up, everybody? Welcome back to our channel here on We the Dreamers. Today I'm really excited to share with you how to install DIY floating shelves. We DIY'd these floating shelves in our kitchen space where there was previously just empty wall space, and it has totally transformed the space. So I'm going to show you how we did it today. So I think everybody can agree that kitchen storage is pretty much one of those things you can never have enough of. This is especially true if you live in a small space, which I do. My house is actually less square footage than my sister Courtney's apartment in New York City, so it's a very small space. It's a bit of a small kitchen, and these floating shelves added some very, very helpful extra storage that we really needed. I know for some people that open shelving in the kitchen is also sometimes a hotly debated item, but personally I think any opportunity to display another plant or some decanted dry goods is one that we should all jump at. So the previous owners of this house had redone the entire kitchen. It was brand new when we bought it. It was kind of a fix and flip, but while they made some choices that we really loved, it also always seemed really weird that they just left this space above the backsplash bare. Here's what this part of the kitchen looked like when we moved in. I knew immediately when we moved into this house that floating shelves would be perfect in this weird empty spot, and so it quickly went to the top of our project list. After we created a DIY waterfall butcher block counter for our laundry washer and dryer, you can watch the full process video at the link in the description or the link above, we had some of that beautiful butcher block wood left over, and I knew it would make gorgeous floating shelves. I also really love incorporating the same materials in different parts of a room or different parts of a house, as I think it really helps to tell a cohesive story and keep the design consistent. So any opportunity you can find to repeat colors or shapes or materials or textures in a house, it really helps to pull everything together. Even if you're like me and you decorate with a lot of color and a lot of texture and you're kind of a maximalist, this technique really helps to pull things together. So because of the small size of the house and the totally open concept design, I kind of felt like doing shelves with brackets might make the space look cluttered. It really seemed like that space wanted floating shelves with no visible brackets, especially since I knew I wanted to put the bottom shelf right exactly above the backsplash, so it would have been a whole deal with drilling into the tile. We didn't want to do that, and I've always wanted to learn how to create floating shelves, so this felt like a good opportunity to dive in and figure out how that works. I will be honest and say this was definitely not the type of project that you can just eyeball. The measuring and drilling is definitely more meticulous because of the fact that you have to ensure you mount the brackets to the wall at a perfect 90-degree angle. And then you need to drill the holes into the shelves exactly the same distance apart as the brackets. I am very lucky that my dad is an amazing craftsman and has helped me so much, has much more patience and discipline than I do, and he was an absolutely massive help in completing this project. With that being said, I think it was definitely worth the extra time and work of measuring over and over at every step, and I think it can definitely be done by anyone if you're just willing to be super patient and super meticulous. I also will note that I think this is another project that would really help to have two DIYers because there is a lot of measuring and heavy lifting. So here are the materials you'll need to take on a similar project. First, of course, you need wood for your shelves. I put a link in the description to the exact piece of butcher block countertop that I used for this project, and I would recommend something that's at least 1.5 inches thick. You'll also need some solid steel floating shelf brackets. I'll link those in the description as well. I used 6 of them, 3 for each shelf, and secured them to 3 different wall studs. From a tool standpoint, you'll need a drill, and you'll also need a self-centering drill guide. This little tool is absolutely essential to getting the holes for the shelf brackets straight and centered when you drill them in. Otherwise, the shelves probably aren't going to slide onto the brackets correctly and the whole thing will be a mess. So get yourself a self-centering drill guide. I linked it in the description. It was absolutely instrumental in getting this project done correctly. Lastly, you'll need a 1/2 inch drill bit, which is the same thickness as the brackets that I used, and a sander or some sandpaper. Here are the steps to get this project done. Step 1 is to determine where you want to mount your shelves and how long you want them to be. Then ensure that area has some studs to which you can mount the shelf brackets using a stud finder. I'll link the one that I use in the description. You really can't get around using a stud for something this heavy. The wood that I used was pretty heavy, so I ended up mounting each shelf to 3 studs to make sure they were extremely sturdy. I personally have not tried doing this project with just drywall brackets. I would definitely recommend putting your shelves in a location where you can find at least 1 or 2 studs to drill your brackets into. Step 2 is to cut your shelves to the desired size using a circular saw or jigsaw or something similar. My shelves are about 40 inches long and they were 8.5 inches deep. After cutting them to the right size, give them a decent sanding job with an electric sander or some sandpaper to make sure there are no rough edges. Step 3 is to carefully mount your brackets to the wall studs, making sure that they are sticking out perfectly perpendicular to the wall at a 90-degree angle. This way, they will actually slide into the holes you drill in the shelves. To be honest, we had to adjust ours a few times. Another helpful tool to use would be a square to make sure that your brackets are perpendicular to the wall. Step 4 is to hold your shelves up to the brackets mounted on the wall. This is definitely a 2-person job if your wood is heavy like mine, and even if not, it's just a much better idea to do this with another person so one person can hold the shelf and the other person can measure. Here you want to very carefully mark the spaces where you'll need to drill the holes into the shelves for the brackets. I would recommend also measuring the distance between the brackets themselves and then cross-checking the measurements with your markings on the shelves several times to make absolutely sure that you get this distance right. Step 5 is to drill your bracket holes using a self-centering drill guide with a 1/2-inch drill bit. That is, if you're using the same 1/2-inch brackets that I used in my project. If not, obviously you want to use a drill bit that matches the size of your brackets. You'll find that you might need to pull the drill bit out a few times until you get the full depth that you need in order to get rid of the excess wood that the drill is cutting through. So during this step, you want to make sure that you're getting the thorough depth that's going to be required for that bracket to slide completely into the shelf. Step 6 is to scoot your shelves onto the steel brackets. Again, a 2-person job. You'll likely need someone else to help you line them up, and it's also important to note that even though we measured very carefully and made sure that the brackets were mounted perfectly at 90 degrees and used the self-centering drill bit to get perfectly horizontal holes into the shelves, this was not a super smooth process. It's a very tight squeeze, and you should expect to have to push them on pretty hard and kind of adjust them as you go. So again, this is at least a 2-person project. Bonus points if you have some more people to help you out. It definitely was the hardest part of the project. But if you've measured meticulously and patiently cross-checked all your work, they should slide into place just fine. Step 7 is to style out your shelves and show off all your pretty fun stuff. I personally like adding a mix of form and function, kind of just in general in my decorating, but especially to shelves like this. So I chose to add some of my favorite cookbooks and a couple cute kitchen tools like my Smeg immersion blender, which matches our fridge, some decanted grains and some giant mason jars, and a copper pour over kettle, and then of course a pretty plant. So overall, this project was probably one of the most transformative things that we've done in this house since we moved in, just because the kitchen itself was a total blank canvas. This empty spot was just weird and underutilized, and it felt like it really needed something here in order to add some texture and color and function, honestly, to an already small house. I'm truly so thrilled with how it came out. Even though this project required me to be a lot more type A than I typically like to be in terms of measuring a million times and being super meticulous, it was 100% worth it. And I think as long as you go into it knowing that it's not something you can eyeball, it does require some patience, and you'll definitely need somebody else to help you line things up and measure things out and slide the shelves on. It's 100% worth it, and honestly, I can't wait to do another floating shelf project in another room soon. I just love the clean lines and the floating shelf look, and I feel like it was exactly what this space needed. So I'm curious to hear from you guys. How do you feel about floating shelves in the kitchen or just open storage in general in a home, especially in a kitchen? Are you all about it? Would you do open shelving through your whole kitchen if you could, or are you totally against it? Love to hide the mess in cupboards. And let me know if you've ever DIY'd a shelf project like this or any kind of floating shelf project. Would love to hear your tips and your experience. Be sure to subscribe for more DIY, decor, and lifestyle videos soon. And thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you in the next video.